Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something truly massive. We're unpacking the MKA Technological Solutions. And honestly, this is one of the most ambitious, philosophically driven blueprints I've seen in a while. The whole idea? Literally regenerating Mother Earth through a wildly complex web of proprietary tech and tokenized finance. Let's get right into it. Okay, let's dive into this. To really wrap our heads around this initiative, which has deep roots in Southeast Asia, by the way, you just have to look at the tone they set right out of the gate. Their catchphrase is joining forces for great Mother Earth, coined by the MPPAC Institute. That tells us immediately that MKA is framing this not just as a standard business pitch, but as an urgent collective rescue mission. We're not talking about your average tech startup making incremental software updates. They're elevating this to a moral imperative, trying to rally everyone, individuals, communities, corporations, around a unified cause of global regeneration. Section 1. The threat from the triad. Before we look at MKA's tech solutions, we have to understand exactly how they diagnose the problem using a pretty ancient philosophical framework. This brings us to their unique framing mechanism, known as Tum Tai, which translates to heaven, earth, and human. MKA takes this traditional triad concept and applies it straight to our modern environmental crisis. Basically, they argue you can't just put a Band-Aid on the planet's physical symptoms without treating the underlying disease operating within these three interest groups. For heaven, they identified this profound greed for life and fear of death, essentially a survival-at-all-cost mentality. For earth, it's about limitless schemes to extract resources without any restraint. And for human, just plain, insatiable greed. So MKA is asserting that these fundamental human failings are the actual engines driving ecological destruction. So the crucial point here is how those internal psychological flaws actually physically manifest in our world to destroy the environment. MKA maps this destruction perfectly to that triad structure. First up, the flaws in the realm of heaven result in severe air pollution. From toxic emissions, they see it as literally destroying the sky above us. Second, all that endless scheming on Earth, well, that leads to the physical destruction of our soil through the heavy use of chemical fertilizers. The ground itself is just completely depleted. And finally, that insatiable human greed causes the contamination of our water and food supplies with harmful chemicals. They're painting a picture of a total system failure across the air, the soil, and our own bodies. That brings us to Section 2, MKA Technological Solutions. Having established this grim diagnosis of a planet in crisis, let's look at the specific intellectual properties and digital ecosystems they claim are going to reverse this damage. To really grasp the sheer scale of what they're proposing, just look at this number, 3,906. That is MKA's stated goal for Phase 1, to build out a massive digital infrastructure consisting of 3,906 smart super apps and mini apps. Yeah, you heard that right. This isn't just a couple of software patches, it's an entire interconnected digital ecosystem. And these apps are specifically designed to interlock three critical pillars: law, technology, and finance. They're proposing a comprehensive grid to manage everything from regulatory compliance to the actual tech, all powered by this brand new digital financial structure. Now, what's really interesting about this is how they specifically target that first tier of the triad, heaven. To fight the toxic emissions polluting our air, MKA proposes using intellectual property from a company called Kunai Inc. They call it the Smokeless Stove, Furnace, and Factory ATM. Essentially, this physical tech aims to eliminate harmful smoke and emissions right at the source. But remember that integration of tech and finance we just talked about? Well, this hardware is managed by a dedicated smart super app called Kunai. And the whole economic engine for this solution? It's powered by its own specific digital asset, the KNI token. Moving on down to the second tier, Earth, we have to look at that soil destruction caused by chemical fertilizers. MKA's proposed fix here revolves around IP from Vinco Inc., which they call Biochar Black Diamond. Now, biochar is already pretty widely recognized in regenerative farming circles because it restores degraded soil while simultaneously locking away carbon. So by swapping out toxic chemicals for biochar, they aim to heal that earth element. And following the exact same blueprint as before, this solution is governed by the Vinco Smart Super App and financially driven by its own cryptocurrency, the VIN token. Finally, to tackle the human element, all that contamination of our water and food, MKA points to their third technological pillar. This one is called Miracle Humus M Terra, developed by Skygold Inc.
This tech is supposed to purify and completely revolutionize agricultural output, ensuring clean, safe food and water, effectively shielding us from the toxic fallout of the old ways. And to complete the triad's digital architecture, this agricultural tech is managed through the SkyGold Smart Super app and uses the God token for financial transactions. So, to recap, 3 massive environmental problems addressed by 3 specific technologies, managed by 3 apps, and powered by 3 distinct tokens. It's a very symmetrical plan.
Section 3, RWA, Mechanism and Tokens. Let's zoom out for a second and see how all this builds into a much broader financial architecture. Okay, the scale proposed here is honestly staggering. They are talking about integrating all these solutions into a pool of 7,750 billion RWA tokens. If you're not familiar, RWA stands for real-world assets. It's a mechanism in decentralized finance where physical assets, like agricultural land, factories, or that biochar production we mentioned, are represented by digital tokens on a blockchain. Theoretically, this provides radical transparency and a totally new way to fund massive infrastructure projects. Now, to be clear, this is MKA's stated blueprint, but it shows the sheer scale of the economic engine they claim is needed to transition global agriculture away from destructive practices.
Of course, you can't just mint 7,750 billion tokens without incredibly robust management if you want global markets to take you seriously, right? So, MKA's documents outline a highly structured financial infrastructure to govern all this wealth. They propose using a system of established trusts, specifically naming US Trust, ATG Trust, and Novita Trust. On top of that, they emphasize that this whole ecosystem is designed to be fully compliant with digital banking standards and the MAS, that's the Monetary Authority of Singapore. Singapore is globally known for having very strict, clear regulatory frameworks for digital assets. So by targeting MAS compliance, MKA is really signaling that they intend this to be a highly regulated, institutional-grade financial network.
Let's move to Section 4, the future of new agriculture. We've talked about the philosophy, the tech, and the massive digital financial engine. But what does this actually look like in the real world? This brings us to the ultimate socioeconomic outcome of MKA's vision, an entirely new model for farming. Their stated goal is to set up 155 socialist regenerative economic groups spread across 5 strategic regions. And within those groups, they plan to build 155 massive agricultural cooperatives. To give you a sense of the physical footprint here, each of these cooperatives is slated to be a minimum of 5,000 hectares. That is huge. But here is perhaps the most critical operational detail in the whole proposal. They explicitly state this will be achieved without forced land reclamation. Instead, the whole model is built on sustainable, voluntary cooperation between the farmers, local communities, and the larger economic groups. So they're proposing a massive consolidation of resources, but without displacing the people who actually work the land. And this chart brilliantly illustrates exactly how they plan to incentivize that kind of cooperation. Traditionally, in corporate agriculture, the vast majority of the wealth flows right up to the top, leaving the actual farmers with incredibly tight margins, while MKA's blueprint proposes an equitable wealth distribution model that completely flips that dynamic. According to their documents, 78% of the economic benefit within these cooperatives goes directly to the farmers and the community. The corporation only retains 22%. By heavily weighting the financial return toward the local level, they're trying to build a resilient economic model where the community is deeply financially invested in the long-term health of the soil and the success of the technology. Now, all of this infrastructure leads to an incredibly bold, super specific objective for their Phase 1 rollout. MKA actually states that through this massive tokenized system, they will generate 155 new, young billionaires. I know, it sounds wild, but there's a catch. These are defined as ethical and talented billionaires, whose wealth generation has to be strictly tied to compliance with 14 of the 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. They're essentially claiming that in this new system, immense personal wealth isn't the result of, extraction and scheming, but instead it's a direct byproduct of successfully regenerating the planet and meeting these rigorous, globally recognized UN standards. Now, a proposal of this magnitude, mixing ancient philosophy with blockchain tokens and massive agricultural reform, it obviously requires some serious context regarding where it's coming from. MK's blueprint actually comes with substantial stated academic backing out of Southeast Asia. It's officially endorsed by the MPPQ Institute, which boasts a brain trust of 31 professors and PhDs. Plus, prominent professional figures in Vietnam, like Dr. Lawyer Do Hu Chien and Professor Dr. Wen Van Tai, are attached to the project. This level of endorsement is clearly designed to signal to the market that this grand vision isn't just a pipe dream, it's been vetted by serious legal, academic, and scientific minds. We have definitely covered a tremendous amount of ground today, looking at a proposal that attempts to totally redefine how we interact with our planet. MKA has mapped out the destructive psychological forces of the triad, countered them with specific smokeless, biochar, and humus technologies, and proposed funding the whole shebang through a globally compliant multi-trillion token real-world asset ecosystem. The ultimate vision? A network of massive cooperatives that enrich the farmers while strictly aligning with UN sustainability goals. It is a stunningly ambitious blueprint. So, the question we're left to ponder is this. Can this unprecedented blend of ancient philosophy, cutting-edge blockchain finance, and global sustainability standards actually be executed at scale? Can it truly realize a regenerated Earth? It's a fascinating model to watch, for sure, and one that challenges us to think a whole lot bigger about the future of green technology. Thanks for hanging out with me on this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.